Interview with Billy from 1988. Introduction. UFO contact person, Billy Meier, is often attacked by uninformed people who do not have the slightest knowledge of Billy's comprehensive contacts and his mission, and all the details. They have never even met Billy in person. This is proven also by the fact that Billy's real and full name, namely Edward Albert Meier Zafaru, as a rule, is only familiar to a handful of co-workers, some acquaintances, and the members of Figurfreien-Gemeinschaft für Grins und Geisteswissenschaften und Ufologie-Studien. Even fewer people know how Edward Albert Meier Zafaru got the name Billy, or that his name was marked down 10,30 years ago in documents which were preserved, handed down, and still exist now on Earth. The name Billy is not only used by the public all over the world and by Billy's closest associates, but also, generally, by the extraterrestrials ETs. Uninformed critics and untrustworthy people who feel Billy's contacts and mission are impossible, discredit and accuse him of being a charlatan or worse, and try to ridicule him. However, generally speaking, they are ill-informed on the issues and contexts and, therefore, are in no position to pass any realistic and competent judgment on the mission, the contacts, or Billy's person. In order to do so in a factual and realistic manner, one has to deal with these matters for many years in a serious, intensive, and honest way to get to know the pertinent and multifaceted information, to study intensely the facts, and to get to know Billy. As a rule, this has been the case with only a few closely associated individuals, as well as several outsiders who publicly announced their positive feelings toward Billy Meier and his contacts. In honest lectures, seminars, radio and TV programs, in films, newspapers and magazines, the Billy Meier case is called unique within knowledgeable circles. There is probably no other case as richly documented by witnesses' testimonies and material as this one, even though none of the witnesses has ever had personal contact with extraterrestrials. This privilege was granted exclusively to Billy by the extraterrestrials who came from the planet Era in the open star cluster of the Pleiades. They have never conducted personal conversations or conscious telepathy with any other person. It is noteworthy that the witnesses agree to having heard, seen, and experienced inexplicable phenomena, which only could have taken place through Billy's contacts. Those IMD witnesses by no means consist solely of Billy's friends and co-workers, but also consist of completely unrelated persons, for example spectators who took part in the rock music festival in 1975 on nearby Bachtel Mountain at Ettenhausen, near Wetzikon in the Canton Zurich, from where they witnessed nocturnal beam ship demonstrations, etc. Previous members of Billy's group, which has loosely existed since 1975, have to admit that they had phenomenal experiences regarding UFOs and ETs. Billy did not strive for these contacts with extraterrestrials. On the contrary, he was sought out by the Pleiadians, because of an ancient mission from thousands of years ago. Furthermore, it has been shown that Billy did not agree to these contacts for financial gain, publicity, or personal fame, which can be evidenced by his withdrawn lifestyle. The contacts with the Pleiadians also did not take place for his own pleasure because, behind all of these events, there looms a huge mission which must be fulfilled by many people. In connection with the mission, many texts have been written, partially transmitted by the Pleiadians or even higher spiritual forms. Some were written by Billy himself at the request of the Pleiadians. Billy's enemies know nothing of the existence and source of these texts, all of which can be obtained from Figu, Switzerland, in the German language, including the contact notes and the latest publication. Many years of experience with all types of people have shown that those who try to discriminate against Billy and question everything are obviously envious, pseudoscientists, sectarians, fanatics, schizophrenics, or simply slanderers. In particular, they seem to be people who, because of some strange opinions concerning the rest of the world, politics, or religions, cannot bear the truth that may differ from their own beliefs. They are willing to suppress the truth with the aid of mean, dishonest methods, and to extinguish it, if possible, even if it means going over dead bodies, tarnishing and destroying the reputation of another human being. Billy Meier interview, November 20, 1988. When I, Billy Meier, am supposed to give an answer and explanation regarding the Pleiadians, their life, philosophy, lifestyle, and mission, it is impossible not to mention creation, its laws and commandments, as well as the ancestors of the Pleiadians, the old Lyrians and Vegans. In addition, I also would like to mention Earth humans of olden days and modern times who had been influenced by the Pleiadians, which would include myself specifically, my spirit form. I am inseparably united and tied in with ancient and contemporary Earth human beings, Lyrians, Vegans, Pleiadians, and the spirit level Arahatatha as an energy, middleman, and messenger. I cannot give the answers and explanations in a brief, banal, superficial, meaningless, ludicrous, wooden, and colorless way as would be the case with allegedly blessed, enlightened people, Shinlas, apostles, God/Jesus/angel messengers, predestined few, clairvoyants, as well as seers and revelators by their own grace. 99.97% of the messages of these would-be contact persons are fraudulent, full of lies and deceit, schizophrenic or similar. Only 203 of 1 million of the relevant remarks are the truth, despite the fact that these people maintain having had contact with extraterrestrial life forms or higher spirit forms, with others in the beyond, indeed, with saints, Jesus Christ or other spirit forms. They disseminate all these meaningless, false, banal, and misleading so-called messages, prophecies, threats, and unbelievable stories to their sheepish and misled faithful. The mission of the Pleiadians, Lyrians, and Vegans with me as the messenger and herald in relationship to the earth beings and the all-encompassing creation with its laws and commandments, entails a horrendous knowledge of spiritual and material form. It simply cannot be pulled out of its basic context and told in a trivial manner, and especially without explanation. This knowledge of the entire mission and history involving the Pleiadians, Lyrians, and Vegans, earth beings and my spirit form, as well as creation, etc., is so solid and extensive, that each individual question can often only be answered in connection with other questions. If these are not answered thoroughly, invariably there will occur misunderstandings, false impressions, errors, and chaos which would be detrimental, contradictory, destructive, and misleading to the truth. First question: ozone holes, climatic catastrophes, earthquakes, hurricanes, AIDS, the nuclear threat. The situation on Earth appears to be threatening. What do the Pleiadians say to all this? Fifth question: according to the extraterrestrials, how can we still save the Earth here and now? Billy answer: earthquakes. Not all earthquakes should be blamed on mankind and its technical progress. Many are of purely natural origin and are connected to the natural developmental cycles of Earth, even though man must be blamed for causing some terrible earthquakes through the construction of reservoirs, ruthless extraction of oil and gas from the ground, as well as the construction of gigantic cities. Hurricanes, tornadoes and hurricanes are closely connected to climatic changes often associated with mismanagement by man against nature. For example, the cutting down of entire forests, the construction of dams and reservoirs, the destruction of fertile soil with harmful chemicals and poisons, the over-fertilization and clearing of land, nuclear testing, the activities of nuclear power plants and their consequences, the burning of fossil fuels, and the utilization of modern chemicals and poisons. Ozone holes. The destruction of the ozone layer is caused by the same human carelessness and bungling, mainly through the usage of bromine gas substances, fluorhydrocarbon, nitric oxide, nuclear radiation, and released fumes, such as those from the combustion engines. More information can be found in the Semi-Asa contact notes from 1975, which already contain a warning by the Pleiadians regarding the destruction of the ozone layer. The growing destruction of the ozone layer, and the resulting dangers can only be eliminated through a rapid global agreement which would prohibit the production and use of all harmful substances currently released into the atmosphere. AIDS. The origin of the AIDS epidemic has been traced to Uganda in Africa, from where the disease spread to Haiti. From there it was transmitted to the entire world by degenerate homosexuals practicing sodomy with long-tailed monkeys, which naturally carry the AIDS virus without any harm to them. The inception and transmission occurred through acts of sodomy and later also through homosexual activities of sodomy. The Pleiadians have explained that a cure for the disease may only be found by medical researchers on Earth when it is almost too late, as the epidemic will have spread worldwide by then. They themselves have no medication for this exclusively Earth-borne disease. Nuclear threat. The nuclear threat is a mad tool of war of the Earth humans and in every way against creation and nature. Moreover, it is the product of schizophrenic, sick fools and psychopaths, without a trace of responsibility, addicted to toying with war. The military, as well as the peaceful use of nuclear energy, harbor infinite dangers which the Earth humans have yet to control, and will not control completely for a long time to come. Furthermore, radioactive radiation is released during nuclear disintegration that is completely unknown to nuclear physicists on Earth at this time. The situation on Earth is threatening in many different aspects: overpopulation, military systems and weapons industries, pollution of the entire world through poisons of all types, radioactivity, crime, power politics, drugs, false religions, global mismanagement in every resort, financial exploitation, misuse of chemicals and poisons, terrorism, racial hatred, slave trade, prostitution, anarchism, made exorcisms of the dead, spirits or other demons, war activities and revolutions, etc., etc. What can be done? First and foremost, the human population on Earth must be reduced, through a humane form of a worldwide suspension of births, with an immediate follow-up of permanent birth control. If these two measures are not enforced to keep the number of humans on Earth in bearable limits, 529 million should be the normal number of inhabitants on Earth, the problems will increase infinitely, grow in equal ratio, and become unsolvable as the human population increases steadily. By the same token, the elimination of various ravages, according to their cause and effect, is an irrevocable necessity and most urgent requirement. The Pleiadians themselves suggested that the following important measures be taken to end the destruction on Earth. As mentioned, for several years there must be an absolute birth suspension followed by permanent birth control, immediate end of all exploitation of the Earth, including the exploitation of the forests and the devastation of entire landscapes, etc., until a bearable, acceptable level for Earth has been reached. Stop of all nuclear testing. Stop of production of all illegal drugs and other drugs which are made for abuse, as well as chemicals and poisons that damage nature and life forms through their misuse. Destruction of all nuclear power stations. Stop of mismanagement of any type. Abolition of false politics and religions in the current forms, which are adverse to nature and creation. Formation of a global government in a unified democratic format. Dissolution of all military blocs leaning toward war, and all the political and military secret services. Dissolution and prevention of all war activities and revolutions, etc. An end to all torture and capital punishment and all other abuses and ravages which burden and harm the Earth and life on it. Formation of a worldwide team of security and safety agents to protect and join the nations. The team would consist of members from all existing peoples and races on Earth. Global dissemination of creation's laws and commandments and the learning and adhering to the ensuing lifestyle. These things would create a lifestyle according to the rules of creation and, therefore, a more humane and dignified life. Worldwide support and execution of plans to make amends for all the damages caused already to the land, forests, meadows, water, atmosphere, plants, humans, animals, and microorganisms is mandatory. Second question: why are the Pleiadians interested in the fate of the Earth? Billy answer: the Pleiadians are interested in the fate of Earth because they feel responsible for their Lyrian and Vegan ancestors' previous actions, false teachings and religions, misguidance and other wrongdoings against the inhabitants who had previously been born on Earth. Even in those early days, Earth humans joyfully absorbed and perfected the false teachings of the extraterrestrials, viscously and willingly, until they prevailed all over the world, as they are now. Therefore, that blame cannot be laid squarely on the extraterrestrials, but must clearly be placed with the willingness of Earth humans to adopt those negative habits. Nonetheless, the Pleiadians feel responsible for the wrongdoings of their ancestors, as well as for the ensuing degeneration caused by them while they were amongst humans on Earth. The Earth human opened up the floodgates to all types of insanities through his callous willingness and arbitrariness. Even now he wallows in terrestrial delights and thrills. Third question: you had your first contact with extraterrestrials at the age of 5 years. Afterwards you lived for a long time in India, as well as other places. It appears you had been prepared for your task. Why were you apparently chosen for it? Billy answer: in 1942 I began my first contacts with extraterrestrials at the age of 5, with Svarth, the grandfather of Semyaza, the Pleiadian female. To start with, I learned a lot through my association with him regarding the spiritual teachings and existence and function of creation's laws and commandments, as well as the use of mental spirit telepathy, so that the communication between Svarth and myself could be accomplished in this manner. Beginning in 1944, during numerous visits on his beamship, Svarth explained to me many things and informed me about important data concerning many fields of knowledge: humanities, history, creation and evolution, incidents and facts, etc., which I had to learn and retain in my memory. This was usually accomplished through electronically induced, deep hypnosis. He explained to me at a later date that due to our mutual efforts my understanding had grown to that of a 35-year-old person, even though in reality I was only 7 years old, and that this knowledge would still increase manifold in the coming years. I was told that I would have the highest degree of spiritual evolution of any human being on Earth regarding spiritual knowledge, understanding, and ability. It must be understood that this did not refer to any knowledge gleaned from books and school training, and not to knowledge patterned on something learned in schools. Instead, it refers to the knowledge of humanities, the existence, workings and utilization of the creative laws and commandments, as well as the teachings of creation and our origins, all the way up to instructions on evolution and the eternal absolutum. In later years I was once again pointedly prepared in various ways by different people of terrestrial and extraterrestrial origin in many countries on Earth. They instructed me in the most diverse fields of knowledge of a spiritual and physical nature, so I would be able to fulfill my task in the mission, and continue my contacts with the Pleiadians. Thus, the necessary requirements and propensities for a meaningful collaboration between the extraterrestrials and me were established and renewed in accordance with my previous lives, as had been the case already for the mission since ancient times. Furthermore, the spiritually and physically very advanced Pleiadians are able to maintain personal, that is, physical contact only with those Earth humans who have reached the high spiritual level of evolution necessary for the physical and telepathic contacts and for meaningful dialogues. I am the only human being on Earth who is able to maintain physical and telepathic contact with Pleiadians and other life forms of the same evolutionary level. Nobody on Earth is able to do this, not even those people whose spirit forms did not originate on Earth. This is the reason why the Pleiadians began to contact me in my early childhood to lay the groundwork for my forthcoming contacts with them. My spirit form had already been active for millions of years in the Lyra Vega systems and had come to Earth, voluntarily, in human bodies as teacher, herald, and prophet. It had also returned into the material sphere from a highly spiritual level, Arahat Athasatha level, and had already performed prophetic functions since your times on Ozone and other planets of the Lyra and Vega systems. In addition, my spirit form, under the earlier name of Yon, assumed the responsibility of fulfilling a required prophetic mission and function. This duty involved, as its mission goal, the teaching, the offering of the truth of the creative information, the creative laws, commandments, and spiritual teachings, etc., to human life forms. At first, all this information was brought exclusively to the humans of the Lyra and Vega systems, and only later to the humans on the planet Earth, and to all the other existing spirit forms. These other spiritual forms included the many millions of extraterrestrial spirit forms who moved to Earth, voluntarily or involuntarily, from the Lyra and Vega systems and the destroyed planet Malona in the Sol system. Fourth question: what do you think of the legend that 3 million years ago 144,30 Pleiadian souls reincarnated on Earth to aid the development of this planet? Billy, answer: this legend has no truth in it whatsoever. The first extraterrestrials who came to Earth were not Pleiadians but humans from worlds that exist within another dimension in the area of the Lyra and Vega systems. The first Lyrians, together with the Vegans, came to Earth initially 22 million years ago. Their stay here was very brief and they continued their travels to other star clusters and planets. Their history is largely obscure, even though assault groups occasionally continue to return to Earth. Approximately 389,30 years ago, several million Lyrians and Vegans again left their native worlds, entered our order of space and time in this dimension, and came to Earth where they mingled with the Earthlings. They procreated in the normal manner and through the manipulation of genes by genetic engineers. From this interaction evolved the Lyrian and Earth-human mixture of beings by normal reproduction. The results of the genetic engineering produced beings that were part human, part animal, and included giants, titans, and other creatures. In the course of hundreds and thousands of years these creatures were displaced once again, and eventually died out because they could not reproduce or because conditions for their life forms proved fatal for them. The many millions of Lyrians and Vegans, who had left their native worlds, were headed by 144,207 leaders and sub-leaders, etc., who reigned over their followers in a rather hierarchic manner. The leaders also transferred this behavior to Earth humans with whom they had intermingled in the past to create human descendants of various types. These 144,207 leaders and their subordinates were, indeed, the ringleaders who were essentially responsible for the misdeeds, false teachings, and false religions which were absorbed and imitated by humans on Earth. Not everything the leaders brought to Earth was evil, false, or criminal. However, many valuable items and ideas were presented to the Earthlings with regard to crafts, professions, philosophies, ways of thinking, medicine, technology, and many other things. This demonstrates that the 144,207 spirit forms of these ancient Lyrians and Vegans were not reincarnated on Earth by way of another planet, to further the evolution of Earth, and are not Pleiadians, but simply Lyrian and Vegan spirit forms. It was much later that the splinter, space traveler, groups descendants of Lyra and Vega called themselves Pleiadians. These splinter groups stayed away from Earth, while the other travelers from Lyra and Vega settled on Earth, only after suitable, habitable worlds in the Pleiades region had been discovered and settled. These worlds, however, just like the Lyra and Vega planets, are situated outside our space and time system in another dimension, a mere fraction of a second off our space/time dimension. The star cluster system of the Pleiades in our present time and space dimension supports no life whatsoever because it is still at a very early stage in its evolution. For this reason, it is understandable that the immigrants from Lyra and Vega, as well as the 144,207 leaders, remained on Earth. In due course everyone died, only to be later reincarnated into human bodies on Earth, however, without any memory of their former lives. This is true for all human life forms, whereby the creative laws and commandments prevent chaos and confusion from entering the human way of thinking and feeling. Nonetheless, all these many fallibles who had come to Earth were unified by an JSHWJSH and were taught all required creative laws, commandments, and other guidelines, etc. This union led the fallibles, in particular the 144,207 ringleaders, to declare their willingness to make amends in later incarnations for previously induced damages. Simultaneously, they drew up a codex for themselves and their followers, which provided for severest punishment of those who did not strive to make amends for their past mistakes, or who would not pursue the resulting mission. This codex was to be valid for all future times until the day the reparations were completed. Hence, the codex, with its purpose of fulfilling the mission of reparations, is in effect to this day and will continue into the future. The ringleaders and their countless followers are all part of this agreement. In this new age, the supporters of the Codex are regrouping once again, headed and led by the impulses of the reactivated Codex, through the teachings of the creative law and commandments, and with the help of the Pleiadians, who also feel responsible for the fulfillment of this mission. I, Edward Albert Meier, called Billy, function as the mediator between the Pleiadians, the supporters of the Codex, and the majority of Earthlings. I am doing this after having voluntarily placed myself at the disposal of this mission and task in ancient times, having a higher developed spirit form and having received the appropriate education. I must mention also that from the facts and stories regarding the 144,207 ringleaders there evolved the false Christian religious and sectarian legend concerning the alleged 144,30 chosen ones. This was accomplished by irresponsible sectarians who wanted to bind the faithful and other misguided followers to false religions, cults and sects, in order to exploit them in every way possible, to the last drop of blood. Sixth question: the Pleiadians distinguish between religion and spirituality. What do they mean by spirituality? What do they believe? What spiritual direction do they use? And what are their customs? Billy answer: the life of the Pleiadians, their thinking, feeling, emotions, and actions, etc., are exclusively directed to the knowledge of the existence of creation, its truth in all matters, to the obedience of the true creative laws, commandments, and related guidelines. The Pleiadians' efforts are steadily following the smooth tracks of knowledge, love, truth, and wisdom, instead of the questionable, macabre, and enslaving religious beliefs which rob people of their spiritual freedom, and reek of evil and falsehood. Religion, in the current Earth-human sense of comprehension, is foreign to the Pleiadians. A creator god, or whatever the various terrestrial cult religions call him, is a horror to the Pleiadians, and they consider the concept unrealistic. They cannot understand why the Earth-humans have not succeeded, despite all the efforts in that direction, in severing the cult-religious chains and finally taking upon themselves, through their own initiative and responsibility, the fate of their species, or in commencing with the long-overdue commitment and fulfillment of the laws and commandments of creation and the evolution. The path of life aims straight as an arrow through the hard-earned values of vast knowledge within the creative guidelines, spiritual and technical matters, and wisdom and ability. The Pleiadians gained their knowledge through hard work and obedience to the truth of creation, the power of the spirit, and the creative laws and commandments which teach pure love of all things. With the help of the strengths and wise counsel from their JSHWJSH, they have been able to sustain 50,30 years of ultimate peace amongst their peoples. The Pleiadians have been enjoying a wholesome spiritual life, and emphatically reject terrestrial religions due to their connotation of cult involvement, being illogical, against the laws of creation, fake, and an enslavement of the consciousness. Their philosophy is based on the universal truth of creation and life in the knowledge of creation, and it is directed solely toward truth of existence and of being, as well as to the creative laws and commandments, which in no way can be equated with a God. As the ultimate power, creation embodies the universal consciousness of the Spirit, all truth, wisdom, and love, all logic, the laws and commandments and energies of life, of being, and of eternity. Creation, as universal self-awareness, is the source of life of all creations within its domain, which is to say, within its universe. This universe, furthermore, is one of 10 to the 49th power other individual universes, which exist in infinite number, infinite space, and infinite time, as part of the highest form of creation, the absolute absolutum. Religion as the earth human knows and pursues it, in the form of the adoration of a god, adoration of saints, and as faith in a god, is a horror to the Pleiadians. They consider this form of religion a blind faith based on cult activities, false teachings, lies, and other falsehoods. It is faith that can never be proven as true, and one which contradicts all the truthful and logical foundations of the creative laws